Stronger starts to their day. Colgate. Start strong, stay strong.
Welcome to Zodiak Broadcasting Station, and a very warm welcome to this exclusive interview that we are having with the outgoing U.S. Ambassador to Malawi, Mr. Robert Scott. My name is Madali Topiri. Mr. Scott, welcome. Glad you could join us on your very last day here in Malawi. First and foremost, you came in 2019.
Right.
Your memories, first and foremost.
First, Madali, thank you so much for having me on your program. The memories, there's an avalanche of them over the last 2 years plus. I'll take us all back a little bit through my memories.
Yes.
When I first arrived here, one of the first days I was at the embassy, I went up onto the roof to take a look at what was going on in the city, because tens of thousands of protesters were walking down the street. And so my arrival here coincided with the political movement. And then as the months progressed, and we all saw this together, but I was here as the U.S. diplomat responsible for our bilateral relationship, what we saw was the judiciary becoming involved. We saw the MDF. I think many citizens saw them as being a strong stabilizing force. And irrespective of where you are on the political spectrum, I think that first year of mine, from July of 2019 to 2020, were fundamental in the political trajectory, the democratic trajectory of this country. And it was acknowledged by the international community as well. I'll just finish by saying The Economist, after that first year of mine here, as you know, The Economist declared Malawi to be the one country in the world for that year that was making progress in its democracy. And so witnessing that and being able to assist that through the programs we had with our embassy was very positive and very powerful.
You raised a very important point. You came at a time when the country was tensed up due to the aftermath of the 2019 general elections, and then we saw, like you said, the court process, and eventually the country held a fresh presidential election, and it was a court-sanctioned election. What lesson did you draw from that?
I think the lesson is that what we're doing in supporting the institutions of this country, in supporting the strong institutions of this country, is the right way to go. Because it was the institutions of this country that allowed the citizens of this country to express themselves, for the judicial process to take place, for another election to be held through the MEC. And so it was a powerful, I think, affirmation that Malawi has the core institutions and those individuals needed in order to progress along its economic and democratic trajectory. Of course, there's more that's needed, and we can speak about that as well, but I think that was the main takeaway for me. Strong institutions, the core institutions that are needed, allowed that to take place in that first year.
We have another case in court that is looking at clearly reversing what happened in 2020. What is going in your mind through these events, that there is another issue that is in court now, trying to reverse the court-sanctioned 2020 election?
Again, we play no role in domestic politics. So what we want to see and support is that a free judiciary takes a look at your constitution and your laws and makes a determination based on the merits of any case that comes before it, whether it's overturning an election or any other case. So our position is that let the justices render justice. And I think that's so important for all of us who have an interest in the future of this country, that we support that process as it moves forward.
In 2 years, what can you describe as Malawi's governance structures? We are over 50 as a country in terms of independence, but we're still struggling in these issues. What could be your view on that?
That's an excellent question. I think most countries try to improve their governance structures, no matter where you are. What you want to have, ultimately, let's talk about the end goal. Wherever Malawi might be at this point, what the end goal is responsive government. So that elected officials respond to their constituencies, so that civil servants provide the services that taxpayers and constituents want and deserve. So I think that progress continues in our role, speaking as the United States ambassador. What we see is to support that process. So we have, I'll give you an example. Asset recovery, hugely important in this country. If money disappears illicitly, illegally, it is of course important to identify those who took the money and to prosecute them, to arrest and to prosecute them. But I would argue as important, if not more important than that, is to be able to go and recover the assets that were taken, to provide them back to the people of this country, to the government of this country, so that they can do the business of the people with those funds. So that's one area where the United States is working closely with the accountability institutions, the Anti-Corruption Bureau, the FIA.
Do you think that can send a clear message even to those that are committing this kind of crime?
I think it sends a clear message to them, but it also sends a clear message to citizens in any country. Because I think the other part of having strong institutions is that you also have citizens that support those institutions. None of us, as citizens of a country, get a free ride in this. We also need to do what we can, no matter how big or small or however we see it, in order to support the structures, the evolutions, to fight against corruption, to do all the things that we can. So I would say strong institutions plus an active citizenry, and that comes through CSOs and religious organizations and clubs and non-governmental organizations, all coming together to empower their members and to empower the citizenry to work with the government. Because it can't just be that we as citizens demand and don't participate. It's got to be a participatory democracy.
You obviously are passionate about governance and the fight against corruption, both as a candidate, as a human being, I believe. We've seen cases of corruption for years in the country. There is a new administration that is in place now, but issues of corruption still emerge. Do you have confidence in the new administration that is doing the right thing in the fight against corruption?
I strongly support the initial statements that President Chakwera made when he came into office. I think they were powerful and they were spot on about being a servant leader, about going to Parliament to present himself to Parliament. I think that was an extremely powerful thing to do. That he's not above, but he wants to see co-equal branches of government. He has said and has taken steps to devolve authorities from the executive branch. So I think that is something that's strong. That's a powerful message from the top. Now we need to see as well that the ministries are working, the anti-corruption authorities are working. And that takes partnership and funding, and that's also where we come in. So we support this president and his call. We would support any president who makes that kind of a call through our programs. We've just signed a $1.2 billion 5-year agreement with the Minister of Finance not 2 hours ago here at my house with USAID. And a large part of that is to provide resources and technical support to the government of Malawi to improve its governance structures, to allow district councils to take more active roles in administering their budgets, things like that. So I think that's where we come in. I see the United States role as supporting the good initiatives that are out there, and then we also call on actors here domestically. This is obviously Malawi's country, Malawians' country. We're just here to support this as partners, as long-standing partners, and that's our role.
Yeah, you actually jumped ahead of me because I wanted to ask you, what is your government doing to support the fight against corruption? You've explained all this. But the next question will be, we've seen that the anti-corruption system in the UK is now joining with Malawi to try to unlock and pass on this thing about corruption. As US, what would you want to see so that it reaches to its logical conclusion that we deal with this and nip it in the bud?
Right. I think a huge challenge in any country. Certainly a huge challenge historically here in Malawi. We're proud to have partnered with the UK High Commission here. Myself with Dave Beer, my counterpart, a good friend and a strong counterpart. Our two teams have come together to work on this asset recovery and other things in anti-corruption. So I think anybody who is capable and willing to step in to help and to partner with Malawi as it pursues its own course in good governance, we strongly welcome that. More transparency, an ability to gain access to information is key, a free press. Having individuals such as yourself and others ask those tough questions, I think sends the right message that this is a functioning system in which people can get information that they need to make determinations on whether things are working and then take steps if they don't believe it's working right.
Let's go, Ambassador, let's go to another challenge that Malawi is facing, wildlife crime. We've seen a lot of people now getting arrested. We've seen just recently 10 Chinese getting arrested, including their kingpin. How do you want Malawi and assist to fight against wildlife crime?
Yeah. First, I would say to your audience, to Malawians, that you should be incredibly proud of what has occurred in this country in the fight against wildlife crime. And let me just explain. In too many instances, when a kingpin, as you said, in this case Mr. Lin and his syndicate, when these individuals are arrested in Africa or around the world, frequently you see that they're able to escape responsibility. They're arrested, something happens, they're out of the country. And then journalists such as yourself are investigating why that occurred. What we saw here is that from the initial arrest to the public prosecutor, the prosecution authority, to going into court, that the process worked, that the individuals who had taken basically from the future of this country, because what it is, wildlife crime is taking the natural resources and the wealth of a country away from its citizens. Because those animals that have been killed, the plants that might have been destroyed, are all part of what would attract people to come to this country. It's part of the beauty of Malawi, and it's part of the wealth that will help in your future. So the pride for this country should come that he was prosecuted all the way through to the end. He received a 14-year sentence. That sends a huge message in this country to my government about the seriousness of this government and the authorities here, regionally and across Africa. I will tell you that many of my colleagues, other ambassadors in other embassies across Africa, messaged me to let me know how good they thought this was, because it'll help their efforts in their own countries. Because they can point to Malawi and say, they did it. And we can do it in this country as well. So I just want to congratulate.
Is it a fight that Malawi can really win alone? No,
well, we're here to partner. I mean, if you go to the airport, you'll see the shepherd dogs.
Yes.
The Belgian Malinois dog. So we were
so scary.
They are scary. They're very professional. They do a good job. They're there to sniff out any illicit trade in wildlife trafficking. So if somebody has some ivory that they're trying to, or pangolin scales or anything like that, they'll catch them. And so we're proud to put that there as well. So that's where it kind of begins. Now the next step is that people in this country feel positive that there are resources on their side, that there are authorities on their side, that if they decide to say there's a poacher, or there are people from out of this country who are coming in and taking, and I'm aware of that they'll be willing to expose that. Because you want to build on that openness and that ability to interdict these things. And the more Malawians see this as a theft of their future, I think the more effective this country will be in combating it.
And let's talk about other issues as we go towards the end of this interview. It's about when President Trump was in power in the US, there were fears, genuine fears, that matter that maybe your government stop funding programs that concerns LGBTI minority rights. There's change of government back home. Do you think there is going to be a change with the new administration back home?
We are seeing every administration changes its policies. I think in the area that you're talking about, there certainly have been changes and there will be changes. How they play out overseas, I think, is still to be determined. But certainly we have seen in this area as well as other areas that when the Biden administration came in and replace the Trump administration, that they set different priorities, different areas that they wanted to be active in. And I certainly think that the area of diversity and inclusion, human rights, let's describe them as human rights as well, are important to the administration, and I think will be important to the work that we do here, and be part of what we do. It's not a dominant area, but certainly we want to make sure that we reflect well the administration's priorities.
Before we finally go, I think we can't let go of the fact that there's been this huge monster that has affected all of us, COVID-19. It has wreaked havoc on many lives elsewhere across the world. Is Malawi doing enough to fight against it, especially in the area of vaccine and its administration?
You know, you asked me about my memories. A very strong memory I have is when COVID first started hitting, that some of the initial analysis, and some of it was done by King's College in the UK, I think, they built models on what would happen in countries. And the initial model was that 80,000 people would die in Malawi in the first year. And that was shocking to all of us. I think anybody who read that, whether you were Malawian or an American working in the
there'll be corpses in the streets.
And so I think that certainly let us know that we were fighting something that it never turned out that way, luckily, but that we were fighting something serious. And so what I was very impressed with was Minister Chiponda, the PS, came together with us, with others as well, but we certainly were there. We initially started with lab work. To, how do you know what's happening? You need to be able to evaluate it. Then when the Biden administration came in, we started this donation of vaccines. We brought in, I think, 600,000 vaccines. We're about to bring in 300,000 Pfizers. And because we wanted to bring in Pfizer, we needed to have ultra cold chain storage. So UPS, a U.S. company, United Parcel Service, partnered with us and with the ministry here to provide small and larger coolers that allow you to keep the Pfizer vaccine extremely cold and allows you to distribute it all throughout the country. So what we have seen is, I think, a response in which the ministry has done a very good job. I think public education is still out there. People need to take their vaccines. We are seeing take-up, more than 1 million people now fully vaccinated. That needs to continue. And we will continue to partner with Malawi by providing vaccines, technical assistance, anything that we can to fight against this global issue together.
Ambassador Scott, I would have loved for us to talk and talk, but I know being your last day, you have other issues as well. But maybe before we go, let me be personal. Where do you go from here?
Oh, thank you for asking. I am being called back to Washington. I regret leaving this country. I have really bittersweet feelings about that because, for more than 2 years, it's been such an incredible place to be and meeting such incredible people. But I'm going back to work on Africa still. I'm going back to the State Department, to our Africa Bureau, to work for our new Assistant Secretary, Molly Fee, as one of the Deputy Assistant Secretaries for Africa. And my portfolios will be peace and security. So what we do on the political military side, kind of the harder part of our diplomatic engagement, and then our public diplomacy on the continent. So the softer part. So maybe you and I will see each other again in Washington. That will be part of my portfolio. I'm thrilled to take the next job, and thank you so much.
Thank you. And we have to leave it there. That's where we end this exclusive interview with the outgoing U.S. Ambassador to Malawi, Ambassador Robert Scott. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and until next time from me, Madali Topiri, it's goodbye for now.